As y'all know, this is Pro Power Hour, and I'm Chris Weldon, one of the community managers here at Housecall. This is something we've been doing every week. If you're here on Zoom, you very well know every week we've been going live, usually with Phil. He's one of our onboarding specialists. He's been a great partner in doing this series. We started this in May, really just to bring you more training and bring you more resources, especially as a lot of new pros have joined Housecall Pro, and definitely for some of you who've been around for a while, it's always good to get refreshers on certain features, find out if you could be using certain things. We've covered a lot of ground since we started. We've talked about everything from online booking to service plans to multi-option estimates to our new marketing center to payroll to so many different pieces. A couple weeks ago, we talked about our app store, just all the different available integrations and other programs that you can connect. And we did touch on QuickBooks. We said we'd have a whole session dedicated to QuickBooks. It's just not we could not go through that last Thursday. So I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving and enjoyed the time off. But we're back today. You might notice Phil is not here, and instead I've got James Greiner in his seat. A lot of you might be familiar with James. He's on our Money Mastery series, and he's been helping us with QuickBooks pretty much since we started this whole integration. He's been teaching for years, it feels like. So, James, let you introduce yourself and then we can get started.
Absolutely, yes. Well, guys, nice to be here tonight. Chris had reached out to me a few weeks ago and said that they were having some issues or a lot of questions with this money mastery, or excuse me, wow. It's 6 o'clock at night for me. Give me a second. With this Pro Power Hour, sorry. I was just in my money mastery slide, so that's where I'm going there. And about kind of the integration and everything. And it really is, it's a great integration to have, but it does take a lot of understanding to do it. So we wanted to start out, at least do kind of a crash course with the QuickBooks Online Housecall Pro integration. There's so much to cover here. To be quite frank, what I'm covering tonight is something that in our Money Mastery and QuickBooks Mastermind online classes that we've done in the past, we spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours talking about this. So I'm going to try to cram this all into an hour. It may not work for that. We're going to see how fast I can talk, how quick y'all can understand. Me and Chris were actually talking today about, okay, what are kind of questions and everything. And I know I'm not going to get to all of them. So if this is something that you guys as a group think is going to be beneficial, let us know. We can always schedule another one of these into the new year or something like that to kind of keep digging into, because there's so much in this integration. I mean, as Chris said, I've been working with Housecall since 2016, 2017. So definitely know the platform, seen a lot of changes here. Worked with the development team. I meet with the development team kind of twice a month to kind of go over the integration and how Housecall Pro is going to work with QuickBooks. So fairly familiar with everything there. And I've worked with tons and tons and tons of pros on here through the Housecall Pro platform, helping them either understand how to do the QuickBooks integration themselves or actually working with them and helping them with their accounting and finances for everything. So I am a certified EA. I'm based out of Greenville, South Carolina here. So it's 6 o'clock and pitch black outside for me. Whereas you people over in California are enjoying a little bit of sunlight still. um, but it's stuff that I really enjoy helping you guys understand it. I want you guys to be able to master your money, master your finances, hence why we started the Money Mastery Live, and we kind of started doing that, really keeping a track on kind of an every month basis here in the Facebook group on Thursdays, Thursday during the day, not Thursday at 6 o'clock at night. But once a month on Thursdays, we come in and really talk about how to master your finances. But before we were doing that, we spent 2, 3 years going through the integration. And we've got a backlog, Chris. We're like over 100 videos on the integration that Chris has in the catalog with Housecall Pro. So if this isn't enough information for you, go into that, I'm sure Chris can post that link for you guys to sign up for that backlog of items and everything. And if you guys have specific questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A so that I don't lose them there. I'll do my best to answer a lot of them with everything. Really today, I want to kind of focus on the base integration because there is, again, like I said, so much with this integration here that it's going to take a little bit with everything to get through. So I'd rather focus on the base integration. And if you guys have some specific questions, try to get to those. And if there's enough demand, enough questions here, me and Chris will discuss doing another one of these videos. So I'm going to kind of start from the cold hard base of everything here. I am on one screen instead of my 4-screen mega setup that I typically have, so I'll be a little bit slower today. So forgive me for being slightly technologically inept because I'm used to having 4 screens instead of 1 screen. Perfect. So really talking about base integration here. Wrong way. How do I do this? There we go. Go backwards, go backwards. There we go. Real quick, I want to start with talking about adding customers, adding jobs, finishing and invoicing jobs, receiving payments in house call and bank deposits. This is going to be kind of our first set of things that we talk about. I'm going to try to get through this. This is the base integration. If you guys have a ton of questions based off of this, then probably going to stop right here before we get into the more complicated integration stuff here. Ultimately, y'all can judge the mess out of me. I am reusing a slide from 4 years ago because the integration really hasn't changed that much. Good news, gives you a good idea. If you learn how to do this 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, it's going to work the same way, which is great. Bad news is, well, I might still have misspellings in here, so ignore that. So starting with everything, adding customers. Obviously, you are going to start with adding customers. Whenever a customer calls in, you're going to start with doing that. So really real quick, wanting to kind of go through everything here in House Call that's going to transfer over to QuickBooks. Now, this screen in House Call has changed a little bit. There's a little more stuff here, but the stuff that transfers will stay the same here. It's also really important to understand if a customer calls you up today and you add them as a customer to your house call today, they aren't going to immediately go over to your QuickBooks. They're not going to show up in QuickBooks until you actually finish a job and push over the first invoice for that customer in QuickBooks. So it's really important to understand if you're trying to do job costing, if you're trying to do assigning expenses to a customer, you've got to make sure that you do a dummy invoice to go ahead and push that customer information over into QuickBooks before you go ahead and have a invoice or a job that finishes for them in House Call. Now, looking at everything down here, this section is our House Call Pro, old screen from 4 years ago, and our QuickBooks screen from 4 years ago. But again, like I said, this information, what transfers over is still exactly the same. Nothing has really changed here in what we are looking at here. So first name, last name, both of those are going to go over. Display name, that is going to go over. It's also really important with QuickBooks. You have to have a unique display name for each and every customer. If you've got 2 John Does, if you've got 2 James Smiths, if you've got 2 Chris Weldons, the integration will not work. The display name for each customer in House Call Pro has to be unique for it to work in the integration with QuickBooks. If that display name is not unique, it will cause the integration to fail. So if you've got customers with multiple addresses, you've got to use the parent-child, sub-customer, bill-to relationship going on here in House Call to set that up here. If you've got customers with the same name, John Doe, James Smith, something like that, that's a fairly common name, you might need to make the name a little more unique in order to not have an issue there. So that's really, really important there. If you do add a company here in house call, it's going to transfer to the company field. Mobile, home, and work numbers, those are going to transfer over here into phone numbers, and one email will transfer over. If you add additional emails, if you add additional phone numbers, those are not going to go over. One address will go over for a billing address. If you add multiple other addresses down here without using that bill to situation going to here, it is not going to send multiple addresses to QuickBooks. The first address is the only address that will go to QuickBooks there. So that's super, super important to understand. If you've got a bill to a parent-child relationship, you've got a property management company and 30 properties that they manage, and you want to make sure that there's a billing address separate from a shipping address, make sure you use the this customer bills to in house call. That creates a parent-child or a sub-customer relationship in QuickBooks with the is sub client and a parent name in here so that we can have that parent customer with all the invoices under them in QuickBooks and in Housecall Pro, and the child customer with only the invoices and jobs for that specific address. If you are adding multiple addresses and you are changing that address each and every time for the customer in Housecall Pro, it will eventually cause issues with the integration with QuickBooks. So super, super important that we keep that in mind there. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of the customer integration there here. Pretty much anything else under the customers. There's more stuff that can be here than what you see here, but just for examples, customer tags, whether it's a business or a homeowner, job titles, anything like that is not going to integrate with QuickBooks. So you're not going to have that information over in QuickBooks. The other thing to keep in mind, if you've got a terms, if you've got a commercial customer that you've given net 30 terms to in house call, those terms are not going to come over into QuickBooks. So the aging, your AR report in QuickBooks will not age an invoice for 30 days. But you can come in once the customer pushes over into QuickBooks, you can come into QuickBooks, find that customer, and go to the additional info section here in the payments and billing, and you can set a net 30, a net 20, a net 50, whatever those terms may be. And any invoices that are pushed from house call will be updated to that net term in QuickBooks Online. So if you've got a customer that's always net 30, I would definitely recommend that you come in and modify that payment and billing for their terms here in QuickBooks so that it helps keep your aging report in QuickBooks accurate. Now I'm going to pause real quick. I'm seeing a bunch of questions and chat, so let me read through those real quick. I'm not sure if these are questions. Hey, Shayna, good to see you. Well, sort of see you. Good to see your name. How about that? Jennifer Fairholm asked, is QuickBooks absolutely necessary? Honestly, yes and no. Housecall Pro is a invoicing platform. Housecall Pro is going to allow you to invoice. Housecall Pro, depending on what features you are going to use there, is going to allow you to potentially do bill pay, to have the expense cards, to potentially do the payroll and everything there. Housecall Pro does have a new accounting feature, but the accounting functions within Housecall are very, very limited. You're not going to get super, super detailed profit and loss statements. You're not going to be able to run custom accounting reports. And speaking as an accountant, speaking as people who work with and talk with a lot of accountants, it's not great for defending you in an audit. It is not great for helping to file taxes on. QuickBooks is a gold standard, like it or not, in the accounting world. And that is something that if you get audited, if you need to change accountants, if you change softwares, Chris is going to hate me for this, but You may not end up liking Housecall Pro. You may want to move to a different software. Sorry, they don't employ me. I can say it. You're going to lose all that data in Housecall, whereas QuickBooks can integrate with multiple different entities or multiple different areas. QuickBooks is an accounting program. QuickBooks can make sure that you've got a solid balance sheet. You understand your liabilities, your assets, your equity. They can make sure that you've got a solid P&L, and the accounting reports outside of just the P&L and the balance sheet are going to be substantially better. And if you're really trying to grow a business, really trying to work with your business there, or looking to sell a business in future, QuickBooks is going to give you the reports necessary, along with an ecosystem of extra apps out there to be more efficient and to master and empower your money there. Is it absolutely necessary? No. If you want to have a solid accounting platform, you're going to need to use an accounting platform, not a CRM platform like Housecall. QuickBooks is just the one platform that Housecall Pro integrates with. You could use Xero, you could use Sage, but it's not going to automatically update like the Housecall Pro QuickBooks integration will. Not going to try to say that name, but someone asked, how do I transfer an estimate to QuickBooks if they didn't convert a job? The Housecall Pro QuickBooks integration, Lauren already answered this, but the Housecall Pro QuickBooks integration does not integrate with estimates. At this point in time, that is not on the roadmap. That honestly is probably not going to be something that is going to be on the roadmap just due to the complexity of integrating with estimates in the first place with QuickBooks. There are other programs out there that do integrate with estimates in QuickBooks. Speaking from experience, they always create a mess. The way estimates work in QuickBooks, converting them to an actual invoice or marking them lost, for some reason, I am not a programmer, I'm an accountant. Two completely different things. You got to go talk to a programmer. But if you have a estimate in QuickBooks and a third party is trying to integrate with it for some weird reason, it just doesn't integrate well. Chris already answered on Jennifer's there, so I'm just kind of going through. Will our questions be answered and saved? Natalie, that's, or Chris, you got that one there. Cool. I'm just trying to go through everything.
Do have a couple of Natalie's questions on the Q&A.
Okay, perfect. The contractor question, I'm going to kind of delay on there, because I'm not sure if that's QB. Okay, so Natalie, I'm going to need some clarification on this, so I'll come back to this. Are you asking how to pay the contractors through Housecall, how it integrates with QuickBooks, or how to pay the contractors through QuickBooks? If you can kind of give me some clarification there, I'll come back and answer this in a few minutes. I'm going to keep trucking on along here. Invoices and everything with QuickBooks. Like I said, one way to make sure your customers get over into QuickBooks immediately and quickly is to go ahead and push an invoice over early into QuickBooks. But it is important to understand, if you push an invoice over, it could mess with your accrual accounting. One of the common complaints that we get is that money moves in QuickBooks, and that's because the QuickBooks or the Housecall Pro integration is going to set the invoice date for the finish date of the job. So if you push over an invoice early into QuickBooks, it's going to potentially move that job in future, which isn't exactly what we want to have happen. But if it's a $0 invoice or a dummy invoice, it's not going to affect your P&L or your balance sheet or anything like that at all there. So it's not something to really worry about. But one neat thing to look at with this screenshot here, what I have here is an image or a screenshot of the bottom of every single job in Housecall. At the bottom of that job, you're going to see this QuickBooks Online box. Once an invoice goes over, you're going to see a URL here that is going to show you that an invoice is there in QuickBooks. Once any payments or anything go over, you'll also start seeing QB transactions start to accumulate here. So for every payment, you should see one transaction. Same thing here with the link. You'll only see one of these, but this is how you know that this invoice was sent to QuickBooks. Now, if you delete a payment, if you delete an invoice in QuickBooks, you're not going to see that here because Housecall Pro is not going to know that. And so don't delete something in QuickBooks if it was pushed over. That can cause issues. But through this box, you can push an invoice if it's not syncing or auto syncing quick enough. If you had a payment apply in QuickBooks via credit or some other type of payment, you can pull that payment over from QuickBooks so that you don't end up with duplicate payments. Or if you're trying to pay something off here, like if you're doing a refund out of Housecall, that's getting into more complicated stuff. Probably not going to have the time for that based off of it already being 6:30. But if you're trying to add a local payment so it doesn't mess up your QuickBooks or your accounting, you can also do that here with add local payment. Adding jobs, any type of job or anything like that. Some of this stuff has changed a little bit, but until the whole new progress invoicing is fully rolled out, there really is no major changes on this yet. There will be some minor changes with that full progress invoicing coming out. When you add a job in Housecall, it's not going to push anything initially over into QuickBooks. So if you cancel a job before it's completed, or if you delete a job before it's completed, it's not going to affect your books and you don't have to go back and do anything in QuickBooks because it's important to understand Housecall Pro works one way. It's going to push everything to QuickBooks, but if you change anything in QuickBooks, if you delete anything in QuickBooks, if you delete something in Housecall Pro after it pushes to QuickBooks, it's not going to delete out of QuickBooks or Housecall Pro. So that's why we want to wait until you are finishing a job to go ahead and have that, have that job or have that invoice go into QuickBooks. This helps you to accurately age jobs. You've heard me talk about AR and aging terms, etc. there. You want to be able to accurately age how old your debt is or how much money you're owed based off of how long it's taking customers to pay you. If you're taking deposits and progress payments using segments, this will also be highly beneficial. Now, that's going to be what changes as the progress invoicing rolls out here a little bit. It's just going to be kind of some changes in terminology based off of the current knowledge that I have on that, but it's still in development, so don't hold me to anything there. All products and services that you put onto a job in Housecall should be coming from the price book in order to match up to actual products and services in QuickBooks. If you do not use your price book in QuickBooks, it will not match up to products and services in QuickBooks, and it won't allow you to map products and services in QuickBooks to different income accounts. Another question that we regularly see is I want to break down my income into install versus service, commercial versus residential. You have to use your price book. Each product and service can only go to one income account in QuickBooks. So you have to make sure that you've got a solid price book, and every single time you are doing a job or doing an invoice there, that you are selecting from that price book to go ahead and put that onto the invoice in order to map income. If you were just randomly typing things in on the line item, then it's just going to put everything to sales in QuickBooks. It's not going to let you have any control over where that income is going. Finite adjustments can be done, like size or location. You can change the description all you want, but you cannot change the product and service name, and you have to make sure that you are selecting from the drop down there on the product and service. For jobs, Products and services are going to transfer. Descriptions will transfer. Prices will transfer. The quantity will transfer. Messages on invoice, when something completes, any type of discounts, sales tax, all of that will transfer. A new thing that's been added since I did this slide deck, like I said, minor changes, is you do now have business units that those will transfer over to classes if you are using QuickBooks Online Plus or above. However, if you are putting private notes in, if you're putting in attachments, if you're putting in equipment information, anything from the audit log in Housecall, job types, job tags, anything like that, that is not going to go to QuickBooks. When you hit finish on a job, that is the first time the job is going to go over into QuickBooks. It'll go over when you hit finish. It'll also go over when you hit send invoice and update for if you've changed any descriptions, any line items, any monetary amounts. Braxton, go lay down. Sorry, it's about dinner time for him, so he's begging for food. But if you've changed anything, when you hit that send invoice, it will go ahead and update it in QuickBooks Online at that point, or QuickBooks Desktop. Everything that I'm talking about here works with both desktop and online. Going into paying the invoice, it will again update the invoice. It will also push over the payment at that time there. If between finishing a job and invoicing a job, you make any changes, like I said, it's going to update. But if you cancel a job or delete a job after you finish a job, after you invoice a job, anything like that, it will not delete from QuickBooks. So if you cancel a job, if a tech goes out, stops a job, on my way, starts a job, and then hits finish, and the customer says, oh, I'm not paying, or they end up canceling the job or whatever, and you mark canceled in Housecall, but there was a monetary amount, there will still be an invoice in QuickBooks that you have to go and delete. It will also not mark any invoices as sent in QuickBooks there, so keep that in mind. I'm going to pause there before we go into payments, because it looks like we got a few other things here. Sandy asks, you can probably set up the customer in QBO directly, exactly as shown in HCP, if you need it in QBO before a job is complete. Yes and no. As long as it is the exact same name, you will get a QuickBooks error when it tries to push over the invoice, and it will say you've already got a customer. Is this the same person? And you can say yes, and it will do the connection and it will push over. But it has to be the exact same display name. And you have to understand, if this is what you choose to do here, it is going to cause QuickBooks errors to occur. No ifs, ands, or buts. They will occur there. Back to the Q&A here. Got a few more. So there was a question about estimates again. Again, estimates do not integrate with QuickBooks. There is currently not on the roadmap to have any integration with estimates in QuickBooks and Housecall Pro. And based off of historical transactions or historical integrations there, it is really messy to have estimates integrate with QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. Any program I've ever used that has that there, it is going to cause some issues there. So it's definitely problematic with everything. And I don't see it happening. I'm not saying it's not ever going to happen, but there's a lot of other things on the roadmap that we need to get rebuilt first, and that the development team is working on right now, along with new features and integrations that they are working on that are, quite frankly, going to take priority. So I would say highly unlikely. If it happens, it's going to be 2+ years would be my best guess if it happens. But I'm not on the development team actively doing it, so take that with a grain of salt. Chris, you may know something that I don't, but
Yeah,
talk.
I was just gonna say, that being said, if you want your estimates data, say you move to another platform, we don't want you to move to another platform. I'm not endorsing that. But should that happen, we do make it pretty easy for you to get your estimate data. So you move on somewhere else, you move to another platform, we can help you get that sent over. So no data is lost, just not something on the roadmap to go into QuickBooks right now.
Absolutely. Um, Sandy asked about refunds. Sandy, we're not going to have time to get to refunds today. That's a pretty high level slash complicated integration function there. So we're not going to have time to get to that today. I am going to real quick. We've got a video on our YouTube channel about refunds. So let me try to get that to you real quick. That way you can at least watch that. If there's enough demand for this, we'll probably do another one of these meetings. Me and Chris were actually talking about that today. So if there's enough questions or enough demand for kind of those higher level things, I am happy to go ahead and make sure that we get another one taken care of here. Let me get this into the chat here real quick. Sandy, there is that for one of the refunds. And here is for credit card refunds. Two separate videos there that you can use there. Perfect. That should take care of that one. Jessica asked, so what if you change the name of the price book item selected? So if we change it from full chimney demo and change it to partial chimney demo, what happens in QB? If you change it in your, let me answer that live, that way it's noting that. If you answer that, if you change that in your price book, it will update the product and service in QuickBooks. But if you were just changing the name on the invoice, on the line item on the invoice, then it is not going to integrate with the QuickBooks integration unless that is another item that is in your price book. So if you want partial chimney demo to be a price book item that you're ever going to use, that needs to be in your price book. Now, if you change midway through the job, you go from a full chimney demo to a partial chimney demo, as long as you're selecting from the price book item and partial chimney demo is in the price book, it will still integrate perfectly fine. Oh, I did that wrong. Sorry, Chris.
No, it's all good. You had it on hosts and
Hosts
panels.
and panelists, not everyone. My bad. But if you are just changing the name of that line item on the physical invoice, it is not going to integrate correctly with the products and services in QuickBooks. Let's see. Nope. And then Jessica also asked if we have taken a deposit, the job gets canceled, and we cancel this job in HCP. How do we make things jive in QB? The deposit check has been deposited, and now we have to issue a refund, so we can't really delete the invoice from QB. I've had issues with HCP showing that no money is owed, but QB showing money is owed. How do we reconcile that? Jessica, that goes back into honestly, refunds like Sandy was talking about, I'd go ahead and recommend, at least in the interim, watching those two links that Chris just threw up there. It's not a direct answer, but it's the roundabout answer to what you're going to need to do. You don't cancel or delete a job in Housecall. You issue a refund from that job in Housecall. You then will go ahead and receive a local payment in Housecall Pro for the deposit amount and reduce the job down to only the deposit amount so that it shows only deposit amount there. It's going to have a difference in your income between Housecall Pro and QuickBooks due to a difference in terminology between the two programs. But I go into that in both of those YouTube videos. And both of those YouTube videos will show you exactly how to like add that local payment, how to issue that refund, et cetera, there to keep the two systems driving together. Again, if there is a big enough reason for talking about everything there in more detail, we can always do another one of these kind of next month, sometime mid-month or so. I'm sure I can get something on the schedule there with Chris if we need to go into some of these higher level topics there with everything. Natalie, I haven't seen clarification on your question, so I'm going to ask for that one more time so that I do properly answer that. I just know we got about 18 minutes left, so I want to do my best to answer that question for you if you're still on here. Sorry, I'm not tracking who's jumping on and off.
Yeah,
That
I think Natalie exited, but Natalie, if you're watching this recording later, just drop your questions, especially if you're on Facebook, and we'll
Mhm.
get back to you.
Yeah, and if y'all have questions on Facebook or if you've got questions later watching this, feel free to go ahead and throw questions into the Facebook chat. I'm regularly kind of checking in there, looking at things, and if I miss something, Chris will Slack the question to me, and I can always get an answer there with everything. So that's always a good option there if you guys are there. Speaking of Facebook, Chris, assuming that we got it onto Facebook, do
We
we have
did.
any questions on Facebook? Are there any questions on the Facebook group there, Chris, or are we good?
We are good on Facebook. I got 2 people in here, but no questions.
Okay, perfect. And Jessica asked, what is a local payment again? Jessica, if you scroll down to the bottom of any job, you're going to see a QuickBooks link and there'll be 3 dots in the top right corner that will allow you to add local payment. That adding of the local payment there will only put a payment in Housecall. It won't push anything over into QuickBooks so that you don't end up with double payments or duplicate payments there in QuickBooks. So keep that in mind there. Going on through receiving payments real quick. Again, once you hit receive payments, it's going to update the invoice for any changes and everything that you have going on there on the invoice, line items, descriptions, quantities, amounts, taxes, anything like that. Even if you add a class at this point in time, it will go ahead and go over. When you receive a payment, and this is really important. This is why you need to make sure that you're receiving payments on the date that you're receiving them in Housecall. Because while in Housecall, you can modify the date that you receive that payment, with the QuickBooks integration, the day you hit that receive payment link is the day that that payment is going to be received in QuickBooks. So if you go back a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I run into this with clients all the time and it irks the ever living mess out of me. Chris used to do this, where they go back 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, because they forgot to pay a job. And they put in a payment, but they deposit that check 2, 3 weeks prior. It screws with your balance sheet. It screws with your undeposited funds. So that's why we want to make sure that as soon as you receive a payment, you mark that in QuickBooks so that we can make sure in QuickBooks that the date that you got that payment is correct and it doesn't screw up your balance sheet or undeposited funds there. The payment type, choosing cash, check, credit card, or other, that will go over into QuickBooks. Little bit of notes, if you put like check number 12345, that's going to go over to QuickBooks. Now, if you give a long line, that's not going to go over to QuickBooks. It's only about the first 50 characters or so that go over to QuickBooks in that kind of memo or note field. So if you put CK12345, that's going to go over. But if you start going into a soliloquy about Miss Martha Sue gave me a check, but then asked for a refund and ended up giving me cash instead. No, I'm not going to have that in QuickBooks. That's not going to show up in QuickBooks. Keep it short, keep it sweet. If you want it in QuickBooks, keep it towards the beginning. Make sure if you're paying by check, put it in the memo field. Now, if you are choosing other as the payment method, you get a ton of options in Housecall Pro, other credit card processor, financing, et cetera, et cetera. That does not go over to QuickBooks. So if you're choosing other as the payment type, in that memo field, give a little bit of a description. Say Green Sky, say Wells Fargo, say WiseTech, say whatever it might be that they're paying by, so that it helps you to match those payments with everything there. So it makes it really easy to do those bank deposits in future there. Bank deposits with the integration, it will go ahead and automatically create credit card deposits in QuickBooks for you if you are using Housecall Pro's credit card services. If you're using Stripe for credit cards, if you're using anything else, well, Stripe is what Housecall use, but Square, that's what I meant. Square or anything else other than Housecall Pros, it won't auto do these bank deposits. But if you're using Housecall Pro's credit card processor, 95% of the time, it will go ahead and auto create the bank deposit and remove those credit card fees from your bank deposit for you automatically. Please, 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 please do not create these bank deposits on your own, because it's going to cause Housecall Pro QuickBooks integration errors. It's going to cause your income to be off. The integration is very smart. The only time that it really doesn't automatically do this is negative refund or negative deposits, or when there's a refund on there, it will generally have some issues creating bank deposits. Again, we can kind of go a little bit more into those, but it's going to have a little more of an issue there. But as long as you don't have any Housecall Pro QuickBooks errors, the bank deposit, if you're using their credit card processor, 95% of the time will auto create. Every single payment by standard with the Housecall Pro integration is either going to show up in your undeposited funds or in your funds to deposit. Now, if you're using QuickBooks Desktop, you can change this integration a little bit here. It should go to undeposited funds or funds to deposit. You want that to go there, not to your bank account. Do not override the integration. Yes, you can do that. Even with QuickBooks Online, you can override it. Please don't do it. I will promise you that it's going to cause issues. I know it will cause issues because I see it time and time and time and time again. Let it go to undeposited funds so that these credit card transactions can automatically deposit and equal what is hitting your bank account. With cash, with check, with other payment types, you're going to physically have to make those bank deposits, but you simply just have to go to the plus new icon in QuickBooks Online, hit bank deposit, and select whatever checks, whatever cash. If you've got ACH payments coming in, if you've got financing payments coming in, again, if you're using WiseTech with Housecall Pro, it's generally going to auto create those bank deposits with WiseTech, so it makes it really easy there. But if you're using Green Sky or Wells Fargo or Synchrony or some other financing company, you're going to have to create those bank deposits manually. So make sure that you are making those bank deposits before going to the banking screen in QuickBooks and adding in income there. If you add in your income from the banking screen and are not matching it to the payments from the bank deposits, the credit card deposits, the checks, etc., coming from Housecall, you are going to end up with duplicated, triplicated income, and you're going to show much, much higher income in QuickBooks than what you're showing in Housecall. That is probably one of the biggest issues that I see. It's one of the biggest things that the support team gets questions on. Hey, my QuickBooks is showing twice as much income as my Housecall Pro, because people are duplicating their income by using the bank feed. Again, that's getting a little bit more complicated. I don't have the time to go into everything there with that today, but please make sure that you are creating your bank deposits through the bank deposit screen in order to not have any issues with duplicating and triplicating income. Jonathan asks, so it will capture the payment but not label as such. Jonathan, I'm not exactly sure. I know that came in after talking about other payment types. I'm just not sure what you're exactly trying to get at there. So if you could clarify that for me so I can answer that correctly. Jessica asked again, or another one, you said not to delete a job in HCP. If the job with the refund deposit is canceled, we should only cancel them then. Yes, if you delete a job, you're losing that job. That was still a job. Even if the job was canceled, even if you never did the job, that was still a job that you did. It was still a job that you ended up going out and at least starting to look at, and you gave a quote on it. So you want to make sure that you're not deleting the job. You want to make sure you're only canceling the job, because if you cancel the job, you still retain that record in house call for future, so that if that customer ever calls back and says, hey, now I want you to do this job, you can see that in the past, whether it was a month ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago, that you gave them a quote to do this exact job and they ended up canceling it on you. Data and information is one of the most important things that you can ever have. And the more detail you can have of what you've done for a customer, or even what you haven't done for a customer, the more you want there. That's why, unless something was put in erroneously, that's generally the only time you want to delete something. If something was physically canceled, if a job was canceled, you took the deposit and it canceled, that's when we cancel, but we don't delete. Jessica asks, so when we take a check payment, HCP automatically goes into new deposits, right? Then when we put the check in the bank, we just have to match the ones that are pushed over from HCP. So when you take a check payment, HCP is going to put that into your undeposited funds, or your funds to deposit. I believe that's the two names that that account in QuickBooks Online now goes by. You will have to, in your QuickBooks, use the plus new icon to create a bank deposit and move that money from undeposited funds to your bank account. When you do that, it will then go ahead and match up with the actual bank deposit happening in your bank account, so that you can match it, if you are using the bank feed, to what's happening in the bank account there. So that's exactly what we want to do, is use that undeposited funds to create bank deposits. Because if you are just using the bank feed to add income or anything like that, it's going to likely duplicate or cause income issues there. Jonathan, thank you for clarifying. You were talking about how it doesn't transfer to QBO. If you capture payment as other, it will transfer to QBO, but it won't label it correct. You have to go to QBO and do a memo to capture the source. So if you mark it paid as other, it's going to mark the payment type in QuickBooks as other. You can select whatever item or whatever thing in house call you want, but that's not going to go over. However, in the memo field in house call, if you notate that it's ACH, if you notate that it is green sky, if you notate that it is barter or whatever it may be, it will go over to the memo field in house call, or excuse me, in QuickBooks, sorry. It will go to the memo field in QuickBooks, but you will need to make sure you put it in that memo field, not just select like the little radial buttons that come up in Housecall Pro. Jessica, I'm glad that I was helping you kind of figure out where your QuickBooks integration errors were happening, and that's why we have this. I do really strongly encourage y'all. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so I know I'm not going to get through much more, but I strongly encourage you. I'm sure, Chris, you can throw the link in for our mastermind or money mastery series there, so that they can go back and see all of these. This, like I said, this presentation that I'm going for, it's something I've already done. It's something that is recorded in there, and there's a video bank of well over 100 in there. Jessica, the YouTube links that I threw up there, we've got a bunch of videos on YouTube going over different things within Housecall Pro and QuickBooks. So you're more than welcome to go through that YouTube channel, and it should really help you to understand that. So that really can help you get a good understanding of the QuickBooks Housecall Pro integration there. It's definitely worth taking a look at there and going through everything. Like I said, if we feel like having more detailed stuff, or y'all have a lot more questions like this, happy to go ahead and do another one of these, just let me and Chris know and we'll figure something out there. Beyond that, like I said, YouTube's a great way to go there, so that you've got that. Donnie, I think Chris threw in the YouTube links a little further up, about 640. You should be able to see those YouTube links in the everyone chat there. If you feel like you need, well, this is way out of date. The one thing that really is out of date. If you feel like you need more help or if you want some one-on-one help, we're here to help you guys out. You can give us a call, you can give us an email. Don't send us a letter at this address. We're no longer here. But if you're still sending snail mail, what's wrong with you? Let's be honest, I never check my mailbox. The only thing that comes in there is bills and spam. But if y'all feel you need more one-on-one help and YouTube isn't working for you, or this webinar registration that Chris threw in here, all the back videos there aren't helping, feel free to go ahead and reach out at one of these numbers. You can also just ask questions in the Facebook group, at me in the Facebook group. I'm in there. I do try to get in there at least once a week, if not more, to answer any questions that come up or anything that I'm tagged in there, and scroll through when I have free time and everything in order to help answer any questions there for you guys. So, any other questions last minute in the last 2 minutes before Chris kicks me off here? Told me you wanted me to do this in 30 minutes, and I was like, yeah, no.
30 minutes to an hour.
Chris, I don't know on that one that Jessica asked. Can deleted jobs be restored?
So canceled jobs can be restored. Deleted jobs can be restored, but you have to chat in to our blue chat bubble, and our technical support team can restore those for you. So I always recommend to pros, cancel your jobs, don't delete them unless you're really, really sure about it, because it is a little bit difficult to get those back.
Perfect.
Perfect. And y'all, we're keeping this financials money theme going on throughout the rest of the month. Next week, we're going to be talking over the My Money section. And the Housecall Pro, just where you can see all your credit card transactions, all of our different financing options that are available with WiseTech, as well as business financing. So we'll be talking about all of that, and then card on file in a couple of weeks as well. We'll probably tie that in with our customer portal and everything there too. No, Lauren might be correcting me actually. Deleted or canceled jobs can be restored. Okay, I stand corrected.
That's why I deferred that question, because I knew canceled could be, but I wasn't sure on deleted.
That must
And
have changed. Yeah.
And hint, hint, guys, that My Money tab in Housecall is a major part of the QuickBooks integration. That's where you get to see your credit card deposits and be able to see those credit card fees coming out if you have to manually create a bank deposit. If you're using Housecall Pro loans and getting loans through Housecall Pro, that integrates with QuickBooks. Again, going into more complexity here, but that integrates with QuickBooks, and you can see how those draws and how the interest is taken care of there. But it does integrate to record the payments back and remove that stuff out of any money or anything there that you've got going on there. Same thing with WiseTech. Like I said, those payments through WiseTech will automatically upload. So there's that My Money one. If you're really interested in the QuickBooks integration, it's going to be another great one to watch there. I'm sure they'll go a little bit over the QuickBooks integration, but we can always make notes if we need to do more on that for other QuickBooks integration questions here too, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And James, we'll talk. Maybe we'll do this part 2 in January. I know there's going to be more questions, and I know Sandy was saying she really wants to. So.
But we know how fun this integration is, Chris. Come on.
Well, cool. Y'all, thank you for all being here. Jonathan, I see your question. Yes, if you're registered here on Zoom, you will automatically get an email with the recording. It goes to YouTube. It's also living up in our help center. So And if you're in our Facebook group, reporting is available right away. Um, I do encourage you guys too to come next week. James does a session on our Facebook group every Wednesday. Or not, excuse me, not every Wednesday, one Wednesday a month. We do a session. And it's going to be next week. If you've been joining us, we've been talking about buying and selling businesses. James, you want to give us an idea where we're at on that?
Yeah, we're pretty much done with a lot of the stuff. Next week, we're really going to be talking about the tax implications of buying and selling a business. So, yay, everyone's favorite subject, taxes. Sorry, it's like, well, probably like 30% of my job, but people think it's all of my job. So we have to talk about it. So that's going to be what we're talking about next week is buying and selling jobs or buying and selling businesses and the tax implications of that. If you guys want to join, definitely recommend. It's going to be a fun session there. The article that or the link that Chris sent out about 656 has the webinar registration on there. So that'll get you registered for that next Wednesday, along with going ahead and getting you access to the video database bank. So you can go back and watch, not the last session, we actually talked about tax planning the last session. So that can be useful too. But the two sessions before that are kind of the precursors to this one that we'll be doing next Wednesday there. So it'll be a lot of fun there and definitely something that a lot of business owners need because I see business purchases and sales get botched all the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been seeing some questions in our group lately about it as well. So been encouraging those people to show up. But yeah, otherwise, y'all, we'll see you in the next couple of weeks for the holidays. James, thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, you guys will probably see James back here in January sometime.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me, guys, and have a good rest of your day and happy holidays if I don't see y'all or talk with anyone before then.
All right, everybody take care. We'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.